You're done, Philip. We've got fresh blood now. My boss's words cut deep, tossing me aside after a decade. I stayed quiet, but silence can be a weapon. I'm Philip Grant, 38, a logistics coordinator for a shipping company. After 10 years of loyalty, my boss discarded me like trash for a cheaper hire. I used to think dedication earned respect. Now I know, sometimes you have to strike back to be seen. The warehouse smelled of diesel and cardboard, same as it had for 10 years. I walked through the loading docks at 7 a.m., my coffee steaming, my clipboard tucked under my arm. As a logistics coordinator, I kept the shipping company's gears turning, trucks on time, deliveries smooth, clients happy. 10 years of early mornings, late nights, and fixing other people's mistakes had earned me a reputation. I wasn't just good. I was the guy who made things work. My desk, cluttered with schedules and sticky notes, felt like a second home. I thought I was untouchable. Victor, my boss, was in early, his office door half open. He gave me a nod, his smile tight, not his usual grin. "Big day, Phil," he said, his voice clipped. I shrugged it off, chalking it up to stress. We'd been chasing a new client, a big retailer, and I'd spent weeks streamlining routes to seal the deal. My work had saved us thousands, maybe millions. I sat at my desk, sipping coffee, reviewing the day's shipments. The office buzzed, phones ringing, forklifts humming in the distance. Normal, safe, but something felt off. Victor kept pacing, glancing at me through his office window. Around noon, he called a team meeting, unusual for a Tuesday. I walked in, my boots scuffing the linoleum, expecting a pep talk about the new client. The team was quiet, eyes on the table. Victor stood at the front, arms crossed, his face unreadable. "Philip," he said, his voice cutting through the room. "We're making changes. You're done. We've got fresh blood now, cheaper, hungrier." My stomach dropped, my coffee mug suddenly heavy in my hand. Done? After 10 years? I opened my mouth, but no words came. The room spun, faces blurring. Colleagues I'd trained, shared beers with, all staring at their hands. Victor kept talking, something about cost efficiency, but his eyes gleamed like he enjoyed this. "Clear your desk by 5, he said, turning away. My chest burned, my pulse hammering in my ears. 10 years. Holidays skipped, weekends lost, crises fixed, and he was tossing me out like a used part. I stood, my legs unsteady, and walked back to my desk. The warehouse kept moving, trucks rolling out, but my world had stopped. I grabbed a box, my hands shaking as I packed my stapler, my pens, a faded photo of my sister's wedding. Victor's words echoed. Cheaper, hungrier. I wasn't a person to him anymore, just a line item. The betrayal wasn't just the firing. It was the ease of it, the way he didn't even look at me. I'd given him everything, and he'd thrown it away. My jaw clenched as I carried the box to my car. The weight of it, nothing compared to the rage building inside me. Victor thought he'd erased me with a few words, but I wasn't going quietly, not after this. The meeting room door swung shut behind me. Victor's words still ringing. "You're done, Philip." I walked back to my desk, the warehouse humming around me, forklifts grinding, radios crackling like nothing had changed. But everything had. My hands shook as I grabbed the cardboard box I'd used to move files 100 times before. Now it was for my life here. A decade of schedules, a chipped coffee mug, a photo of my sister's wedding. The weight of it all pressed against my chest, heavier than the box itself. Victor didn't let it end quietly. He called the team to the break room an hour later, his voice loud, almost cheerful. "Meet Ryan," he said, clapping a hand on the shoulder of a kid in his 20s, all slick hair and nervous grin. "Our new logistics coordinator, fresh ideas, hungry for the job." Hungry. The word sliced through me. I stood at the edge of the room, box in my arms, as Victor listed Ryan's potential, while my 10 years, my roots, my fixes, my late nights, went unmentioned. Colleagues shifted in their seats, eyes on the floor. Emma, the only one I'd called a friend, bit her lip, but said nothing. Silence was louder than Victor's praise. He turned to me, his smile sharp, like he was daring me to react. "Philip, anything to say?" My jaw clenched, my throat burning. I wanted to shout, to list every crisis I'd solved, every client I'd saved. Instead, I shook my head, my voice locked away. "Good," he said, turning back to Ryan. "Let's get to work." The team shuffled out, avoiding my gaze, their footsteps a dull roar in my ears. I was invisible now, erased in front of the people I'd trained, joked with, trusted. I packed the last of my desk, Victor lingering nearby, pretending to check his phone. "Efficiency, Phil," he said, not looking up. "It's just business. Business." My hands tightened around the box, the edges cutting into my palms. 10 years of loyalty, of carrying this company through storms, and he called it business. I'd streamlined their entire West Coast operation, saved millions on that retailer deal. And he'd replaced me with a kid who'd never seen a loading dock at 2 a.m. The betrayal wasn't just the firing, it was the performance. The way he made sure everyone saw me break. I walked to my car, the box heavier with every step. The warehouse loomed behind me, its lights harsh against the dusk. I threw the box in the trunk, my breath ragged, my knuckles white. Victor thought he'd won, thought I'd slink away, forgotten. But the rage boiling inside me wasn't loud, it was quiet, sharp, dangerous. I slid into the driver's seat, my hands steady now, my mind clear. He'd made a mistake. I wasn't gone. I was just getting started. Victor thought he'd buried me with that smirk. But I was already digging for his secrets. The drive home was a fog, the city lights blurring past my windshield as Victor's voice looped in my head. Cheaper. Hungrier. My knuckles ached from gripping the steering wheel, the cardboard box in my trunk rattling with every turn. 10 years. 10 years of fixing his messes, staying late, making him look good, and he'd tossed me out like a used receipt. My apartment felt too small when I walked in, the air thick with the smell of cold coffee and yesterday's takeout. I dropped the box on the floor, the photo of my sister's wedding sliding out, glass cracked. I didn't pick it up. I couldn't. I sank onto the couch, my tie still knotted, my pulse hammering. The humiliation wasn't just the firing, it was the show Victor put on, parading that kid Ryan like a trophy while I stood there, invisible. I'd trusted him, thought loyalty meant something. My dad's voice echoed from years ago. Work hard, Phil, and it'll pay off. It hadn't. I grabbed my laptop, more out of instinct than plan, and logged into my old work email. They hadn't cut my access yet, a sloppy mistake. My hands shook as I scrolled through months of messages looking for something, anything to make sense of it. Then I found it. An email from Victor to the CFO sent 3 months ago, claiming my logistics plan had cost overruns. Lies. I'd saved $500,000 on that plan, and he knew it. Another email, buried deeper, showed him rerouting budget funds to a side account, small enough to miss but enough to pocket thousands. My breath caught. He wasn't just stealing my credit, he was stealing money, pinning errors on me to cover it. My fingers froze on the keyboard, rage mixing with a cold, sharp clarity. Victor wasn't untouchable. He was careless. I kept digging, my eyes burning from the screen. Project logs, budget sheets, client complaints, all pointing to Victor's shortcuts. He'd falsified reports, blamed me for delays, and cashed in on my work. My chest tightened, not just with anger, but with shame. I'd let him do this, stayed quiet, thinking it was just office games. No more. Exposing him could bring him down, his job, his reputation gone. But the risk was real. If I sent this to the wrong person, he'd spin it, paint me as the disgruntled ex-employee. I'd lose any chance at another job in this industry. I leaned back, my apartment silent except for the hum of the fridge. My coffee mug sat on the table, the crack in its handle staring back like a warning. I could stay quiet, move on, let Victor win. Or I could fight, use his own lies against him. My phone buzzed, a text from Emma, my old coworker. "You okay?" "Victor's trash." My thumb hovered over the reply. Could I trust her? She'd seen Victor's games up close. Maybe she was the key to making him pay. Victor's secrets were in my hands, but one slip could ruin me. Was Emma my ally or another trap? The laptop screen glowed in the dim light of my apartment, casting shadows across the cracked coffee mug on my table. It was 2 a.m., and I was neck-deep in Victor's emails, each one a shard of his betrayal. Budget sheets showed him siphoning funds. Client reports had my name on his mistakes, and meeting notes revealed him pitching my logistics plans as his own. My hands trembled as I saved every file to a flash drive, my pulse a drumbeat in my ears. 10 years of loyalty, and he'd built his career on my back while setting me up to fail. I wasn't just angry, I was awake. I texted Emma at 3 a.m., my thumb hesitating over the send button. "Need to talk. Victor's dirty, you in?" She'd been in that break room, her silence as loud as the rest. But her text after the firing, "Victor's trash," gave me hope. My phone buzzed 10 minutes later. "Call me, now." Her voice was low, urgent, like she was hiding. "Phil, I've wanted to nail him for years," she said. "He's been skimming from the new client deal, $50,000 at least." My breath caught. She'd seen him fudge numbers, redirect payments, even bribe a supplier to stay quiet. Emma had kept records, too. Screenshots she'd never dared use. We met at a diner the next day, the kind with sticky tables and burnt coffee. Emma slid a USB drive across the booth, her eyes darting to the door. "This has everything," she whispered. "Emails, bank transfers, even a voice memo of him laughing about framing you." My stomach twisted, not just from the betrayal but from the weight of what we were planning. Exposing Victor could tank his career, his bonuses, his corner office gone. But if we slipped, he'd come for us. Lawsuits, blacklisting, maybe worse. I gripped the USB, its edges biting into my palm, and nodded. "We do this anonymous," I said. "No traces." Back home, I merged Emma's files with mine, building a dossier that could bury Victor. Every email, every falsified report, every dollar he'd stolen was laid out like a map of his greed. My hands shook as I encrypted the files, routing them through a secure server I'd learned about from a client. Emma suggested targeting the board and the new retailer client. They'd hit hardest. But doubt gnawed at me. Victor was slick, connected. If he traced this back, I'd lose more than a job. My apartment was silent, the flash drive heavy in my hand. I pictured Victor's smirk, his cheaper, hungrier jab. That kid Ryan was probably clueless, another pawn. This wasn't about him. It was about making Victor feel what I felt. Erased. I saved the final draft. My fingers cold, my coffee long gone. Emma's text buzzed. "You sure about this?" My jaw tightened. I wasn't sure, but I was done being silent. Victor thought he'd won. He was about to learn how wrong he was. The evidence was ready, a bomb waiting to drop. But could I light the fuse without burning myself? The diner's neon sign flickered outside as I sat at my kitchen table, the USB drive from Emma glowing faintly in the laptop's port. My apartment was dark, the only light from the screen where our dossier sat finished, a ticking bomb of Victor's lies. Emails, bank transfers, a voice memo of him laughing about framing me. It was all there, meticulously organized, undeniable. My hands hovered over the keyboard, my palms sweaty. Emma had insisted on encryption. A burner email routed through a client's secure server. "No traces," she'd said, her voice tight over the phone. "Victor's got friends in high places." My jaw clenched. He'd learn what it felt like to lose everything. We'd targeted 2 recipients. The company board, who'd fire him if they saw the truth, and the new retailer client, whose $3 million contract was Victor's lifeline. If they pulled out, he'd crash. I drafted the email, my fingers steady but my pulse racing. Attached is evidence of Victor Klein's financial misconduct, it began, cold and professional. No emotion, just facts, dates, amounts, proof of his skimming, his falsified reports blaming me. Emma's screenshots and my project logs were the nails in his coffin. I read it again, my throat dry, picturing Victor's smirk when he'd called me done. This was my answer. Emma called at midnight, her voice a whisper. "You sent it yet?" I hadn't. My finger lingered over the send button, doubt creeping in like cold air. If Victor traced this back, he'd come for us, lawsuits, slander, maybe worse. I'd seen him ruin people before, twisting stories to save himself. My savings were gone, my job lost. This could tank my future in logistics forever. But then I remembered the break room, Ryan's nervous grin, the team's silence. Victor hadn't just fired me, he'd erased me. I hit send, the email vanishing into the void. My heart thudded, a mix of fear and fire. Emma texted, "It's done. Now we wait." Waiting was torture. I paced my apartment, the floor creaking, my cracked coffee mug staring at me from the counter. Every noise, a car outside, a neighbor's door, made me jump, half expecting Victor to show up, his charm turned to venom. I checked the burner email, empty. No reply, no sign it had landed. Had it worked? Or had I just painted a target on my back? I thought of my dad's advice. Work hard, Phil. Hard work hadn't saved me. But this careful, quiet trap might. I sat on the couch, my hands cold. The dossier's files still open on my screen. I wasn't just fighting for me anymore. It was for every late night I'd given, every crisis I'd fixed, every time I'd let Victor take the credit. Justice wasn't loud. It was this, silent, sharp, unstoppable. But as the clock ticked past 2 a.m., A knot tightened in my gut. Victor was a snake and snakes strike back. The trap was set, but Victor wasn't down yet. Would my silence destroy him? Or would he find a way to bite? The waiting was like holding my breath underwater. 2 days after sending the dossier, my phone buzzed with a text from Emma. "It's happening. Client's out." My heart slammed against my ribs as I sat on my couch, the apartment dark except for the glow of my laptop. The retailer client, the $3 million deal Victor had bragged about, had pulled their contract after receiving our anonymous email. Emma's next message came fast. "Board's an emergency session." Victor's freaking out. I could picture him in his corner office, tie loose, barking at his assistant, his charm cracking under the weight of his own lies. I opened my laptop, refreshing the burner email for any response. Nothing yet, but Emma's updates painted a vivid scene. The warehouse was a mess. Drivers gossiping, supervisors dodging questions, the whole operation rattled. Victor had tried to spin it, blaming system errors and rogue employees, but the board wasn't buying it. Our dossier, his skimmed funds, falsified reports, the voice memo of him laughing about framing me was too airtight. My hands clenched, a grin tugging at my lips. For the first time since he'd fired me, I felt power sharp and cold like a blade in my grip. But the high didn't last. Emma texted again. "Victor's digging. He's asking about you." My stomach twisted, the room suddenly too quiet. I'd covered our tracks, encrypted files, a burner email, a secure server. But Victor was slippery. He'd ruined people before, twisting truths to save himself. If he traced this back to me, I'd face lawsuits, maybe worse. My savings were gone, my career in logistics hanging by a thread. I paced the apartment, my boots thudding on the hardwood, my cracked coffee mug a silent witness on the counter. Every creak outside made me flinch, half expecting him to show up. His smirk replaced by rage. By evening, Emma sent a screenshot of an internal memo. Victor was suspended pending investigation. Not fired yet, but close. The client's withdrawal had cost the company millions, and the board was furious, auditing every deal Victor had touched. I leaned back, my breath shallow, picturing him sweating in a meeting, his excuses falling apart. My silence had done this, turned his own lies against him. But he wasn't down yet. Emma's next text was a warning. "He's calling old staff, fishing for dirt. Stay low." My pulse spiked. Victor was cornered, and cornered men lash out. I sat at my kitchen table, the flash drive with our dossier still plugged in, its weight heavier than ever. I'd started this war, and it was working. His career was crumbling, his reputation in tatters. But the fear lingered, sharp as the rage that had driven me. I'd taken his client, his control. What would he take from me if he found out? Victor was falling, but he wasn't out. If he sniffed me out, my silence might become my noose. The text from Emma came at 6 a.m., sharp and final. "Victor's gone. Fired last night." My heart thudded as I sat up on my couch, the apartment still dark, the cracked coffee mug on the table catching the first light. The board had acted fast, their investigation tearing through Victor's lies like paper. The dossier, his skimmed funds, falsified reports, that damning voice memo had done its job. The $3 million client was gone, and 2 more followed, spooked by the audit's findings. Victor's corner office was empty, his name erased from the company's letterhead. I pictured him packing his desk, no smirk, no audience, just the weight of his own ruin. Emma called an hour later, her voice steady but alive with relief. "They know it wasn't you, Phil," she said. She'd spoken up in the board's final meeting, showing them my original logistics plans, the ones Victor had twisted to frame me. Colleagues who'd stayed silent in the break room now corroborated her, admitting they'd seen him steal my work. The company was reeling, but my name was clear. I leaned back, my hands cold, a grin breaking through. I'd done this, quietly, carefully, without ever stepping into the light. My silence had been louder than any shout. That afternoon, my phone rang, a number I didn't know. "Philip Grant? This is Dana from Coastal Freight," a woman's voice said, calm and professional. "We heard about your work on the retailer deal. Interested in a senior logistics role?" My breath caught. The offer was better than my old job. Higher pay, more control, a fresh start. I managed a "yes, I'm in," my voice steadier than I felt. I hung up, my pulse racing, the cracked mug staring back like a trophy. Victor was jobless, blacklisted in the industry while I was rising. Justice didn't just feel good, it felt right. Emma texted a final update. "Victor's LinkedIn's dark. He's done." I laughed, a short, hard sound. His network was gone, his reputation ash. The industry was small. Word of his fraud had spread and no one would touch him now. I stood, pacing my apartment, the floor creaking under my boots. The flash drive with our dossier sat on my table, its work complete. But as the high faded, the betrayal lingered. Victor's cheaper, hungrier jab. The team's silence, my own blindness to his games. I'd won, but the cost wasn't just the fight. It was the trust I'd lost, the years I'd given to a company that let me fall. I looked at the photo of my sister's wedding, still in its cracked frame. I'd cleared my name, taken Victor down, and landed on my feet. But the scars were there, etched deep. I wasn't the same man who'd walked into that warehouse a month ago, thinking loyalty was enough. I'd destroyed Victor and reclaimed my life, but the pain stayed. Could I ever trust again, or was I forever changed? The new office at Coastal Freight smelled of fresh paint and ambition. A world away from the diesel-soaked warehouse I'd called home for a decade. My desk was clean, my new title, Senior Logistics Manager, etched on a nameplate that felt like a badge. At 38, I'd landed on my feet with a better salary and real authority. But as I set up my laptop, my hands steady, Victor's voice still lingered. Cheaper. Hungrier. The memory of that break room, the team's silence. The box I'd packed, it clung to me like damp air, heavy and unshakable. I'd won. Victor was gone, his career a smoking ruin. Emma's texts had kept me updated. His LinkedIn was a ghost, his industry contacts had cut him off, and whispers of his fraud followed him like a shadow. The $3 million client loss and the board's audit had stripped him of everything. His bonuses, his reputation, his future. I pictured him in some cramped apartment, scrambling for a job no one would give him. My silence, that carefully crafted dossier, had done that. No shouts, no fights, just evidence, cold and sharp, delivered without a trace. It felt good, but not clean. My new role demanded focus, and I gave it. I built routes, negotiated contracts, earned nods from my boss, Dana, but every praise made me tense, waiting for the catch. Victor had taught me that trust was a trap, that loyalty could be weaponized. I locked my files, double-checked my work, kept my guard up. Emma called one night, her voice lighter. "You're the talk of the old crew, Phil," she said. "They know you were right." I nodded, though she couldn't see, my throat tight. Being right didn't erase the humiliation. The years I'd let Victor steal my work, thinking it was just the game. I kept the cracked coffee mug on my kitchen counter, a reminder of the man I'd been, loyal, quiet, blind. The photo of my sister's wedding sat beside it, its frame still broken but the memory intact. I'd cleared my name, taken Victor down, and rebuilt my life. But the scars were there, etched in every late night I'd given, every time I'd trusted too much. I wasn't that guy anymore. I was harder, sharper, ready to protect what was mine. Victor's fall was a warning to anyone who'd try to erase me again. My silence could destroy them. I stood in my apartment, the city lights flickering through the window. The flash drive with the dossier was locked in a drawer. Its work done. I didn't need it anymore. But as I turned off the light, the quiet settled in, heavy with questions. I'd won, but at what cost? The past was buried, but my future was mine to guard. I'd crushed Victor and rebuilt my life, but the silence still echoed. Would I ever feel whole again, or was trust gone for good?